Welcome to Daily Focus. I appreciate you joining me today. You're joining me from down on the Ohio-Michigan border. I've got a board meeting down here for Max Teachers Convention, but I wanted to make time to share God's Word with you, and so I appreciate your flexibility and a little bit of a different background today, but I'm so thankful for the chance to share God's Word. Well, we're in chapter 28 of Acts, and we find that Paul and all of the prisoners, just as God had said. Remember, yesterday we looked at Paul said, "I believe God," and we too need to believe God in the midst of struggles and difficult circumstances. That whatever He has said to be true is indeed true and will always be true, and that He is in control, and we can believe God. And so every one of those on the ship made it to shore safely, and there was a barbarous people. In other words, they were a little bit rough around the edges. They lived a little extreme, and were not refined. They were not educated group of people, but rather survivalists. And so when they got to there, Paul says they showed no little bit of kindness. He says they showed us no little kindness. In other words, they bent over backwards. They built a fire so that they could stay warm because it was raining, and no doubt the wind was still blowing, and they were all wet, and so they built a fire for them to be able to dry out and to stay warm. And Paul, gathering a bunch of sticks to throw on the fire, out of that bundle of sticks came a viper, a poisonous snake that should have taken Paul's life, and latched onto his arm, and he shook it off into the fire. And these people begin to jump to conclusions. I don't know about you, but one of the most dangerous things in our culture today is jumping to faulty conclusions. We need to remember that Proverbs 18:13 says that if we come to a conclusion without having all of the facts, when all the facts come out, it's going to be counted to us for folly. In other words, you should not form an opinion because one person shared their side of a story. You should not form an opinion of somebody just because of what somebody says about them, or because of what you have heard regarding a situation or an event or whatever it may be. We should make sure that we have the whole matter. We should have all of the facts as we can before we form a conclusion. Now, that's important for us to remember, that sometimes we don't have all the facts. Sometimes we'll never be privy to all of the facts. And so therefore, we need to exercise the discipline that comes with making sure that we are very careful with the opinion of our mind, or where we allow our thinking to go, based on the fact that we just don't have all the facts. And to be able to say, you know what, I'm not going to think ill of that person. I'm not going to think evil of that situation, because I just don't know, and I may never know. And so it's not for me to bother my brain power, and it's not something that should enter into my heart. I should guard my heart against an opinion, because I don't have, and maybe will never have, all of the facts. And boy, in a day where there is so much fake news and so much use of the media to fuel an agenda or to get people to jump on board, we've watched protests turn to nothing more than selfish rioting, simply because of the fact that they have been told a certain position, and they have run with it without having all the facts. How many times have we seen that there is rioting over something, and then when all the facts come out, whether it's video camera footage or whether it's all of the facts from those that were there, not how it was presented on the news to begin with, or how it was first communicated. But when all the facts come out, we find out, you know what, it wasn't what it was made out to be at all. And so when we look at this, I know that this is kind of a unique situation, but I find that these men, when they see this viper latch onto Paul, they immediately said, this guy is a murderer, that though he escaped the sea, God has dealt with him here. And so he is going to die. He should have died in the sea because of what he's done. And now he is going to die because this snake is going to take his life. Well, when the snake didn't take his life and his hand didn't swell and he didn't fall down dead and he didn't get sick and he shook it off as if nothing had happened, then they jumped to the conclusion he must be a god. This is supernatural. Even the viper, even the poisonous snakes cannot affect him. And they jump to a whole nother faulty conclusion based upon a limited amount of data. And I think when I read that, there's so much more in this story, but when I was reading that this morning, I just thought, I'm just going to share with you that there are real dangers to jumping to conclusions before you have the data. And sometimes we don't ever get it all, so we need to guard our heart and our mind against forming an opinion when we just have heard parts of it. And then we need to make sure that we think the best, that we are willing to embrace a person's reputation and not be so quick to destroy it. And so as we think about all of the amounts of information swirling around us and the so many different avenues for which data is given to us, that we filter it out and guard our minds and our hearts before we form conclusions and jump to faulty conclusions based on limited information. So that's my admonition for today. I hope we'll practice it, and we will certainly be better because of it. God bless you. I'll see you again tomorrow.